Hey guys, it's Blue here and welcome to another Yin Yoga session. Today we're going to be working into the upper body and predominantly the shoulder area. Now this was requested by much appreciated Patreon Karina, so thanks very much for the request, Karina, and we'll just get straight into it. Okay, so for today's class we're going to definitely need 2 blocks, and I recommend also having a blanket or a rolled up towel or something to put under your knees to create a bit of extra cushioning in case you get sore knees in those long hold poses. So we'll just get straight into it. So let's make our way onto or into a wide-legged balasana, a wide-legged child's pose. So once again, even here in this first posture, it might be nice, depending on your mobility, to have your blanket laid along the mat here. So you can place the knees down on that. You might even be able to bring the knees out a little bit wider. But remember, we're not starting off with too much ambition or trying to create these shapes. We're letting the body fall in. It's all about discovery, acceptance, and awareness. So we might even just start off small. Find something that's relatively comfortable, and the knees don't even have to be out wide if that doesn't suit you. From here, we're going to be walking the hands forward and just allowing yourself to spill in. Now straight away, notice if or where the tension is. And if we've sort of dived too far into the posture, remember we've got plenty of time to explore. And we're thinking a lot about the upper body today, so don't worry too much about opening the hips. The width or the distance between the knees is sheerly just to create a little bit of openness in the spine and space for breath in the rib cage. So if you like, you could even put a block down under the forehead here. That's quite nice. And wing the elbows out a little bit. Create a bit of space. Feel the side body broaden a little bit. And you can play around with where your arms rest. Feel the shoulder blades soften, or the space between the shoulder blades soften. And just start to take a little tour of your body. Start to notice where there's any resistance. Start to notice what your body feels like right now. Before we get started in these intuitive and really explorative forms of yoga, we really want to start from a place where we know where we are. We want perspective. And it's not a place of judgment, so we're not starting less than. We're just noticing where we are. And not even too worried about where we're going to get to. We're sort of just noticing what happens. And that can be one of the trickiest things of all, is sort of just letting the body happen. The mind likes to be in control. And the mind thinks it is in control, but most of the time actually our actions and reactions are quite automated. So without having automated reactions, but also without letting the mind sort of sit there in control of the body, step your awareness back and just notice it all happen. And at this point you might be starting to notice the hips, you might be noticing the lower back, maybe the pressure in the tops of the feet and the knees. Remember, a little bit of joint pressure is good as long as it's not sharp pain. You might be noticing the shoulders. Hopefully you're noticing the shoulders, that beautiful opening in between the side body and the elbows, all the way up to the fingertips. And in this posture, I love to monitor the breath as it sort of gently, or the ribs gently, squeeze into the inner thighs. The ribs sort of flare and make contact with the inner thighs, and then retract away. But remember, we're not controlling the breath like we would in sort of hatha or vinyasa practices, or any of the more yang practices. We're just sort of using the breath as a pendulum. We're noticing the speed of the breath. Instead of controlling the speed, we're looking for subtle changes in the breath, because that helps us acknowledge where we are in the pose. And just take a few more moments here. Taking your time. Settling in. And then we're going to make our way out of our first posture. So we're going to come up onto hands and knees here. Always taking your time to come back out of the postures. Now, from here, I'm just going to move this block out of the way, and we're just going to roll the shoulders back, press the chest forward. And exhale, arch the back. And just doing a few gentle movements here. It might be nice to extend the legs away from the body. Just release any tension in the joints there. Sometimes it's nice to even sort of flex the toes back towards the shins and press into the heel for a moment and give yourself a nice deep opening in the back of the leg there. And we'll start on the other side here. These transitional poses are often the most important, making our way back into a neutral sort of position. So we always want to take plenty of time for that to happen. And I'm just going to bring my knees back to a neutral position here. And then I'm going to bring my left elbow down to the mat and slide the hand in, so it's sort of in the center, it's underneath my forehead maybe. I'm going to walk this right hand out. I'm going to walk it over to the left hand side. I'm going to let the weight of my body sort of drag, or not so much drag, but extend that right arm. You can reposition this left arm a little bit if you like, depending on your mobility. And you could have moved yourself around so your knees are resting on your blanket if need be. And depending on what your body is allowing you to do, you might sort of move your hand further over towards the left-hand side. But what's happening here is the weight of my hips, because my knees are in front of my hips, the weight of my hips is sort of just drawing my body away from my fingertips. Now I'm just finding a place for my forehead here, resting on my arm or the back of my hand. And looking for that lovely opening in the side body. There's going to be a little bit of resistance in the right side body because we've really opened up over the rib cage here, over the obliques and the shoulders, the lats. So as you breathe, you will start to notice the ribs kind of pressing into the muscles, the lungs pressing into the ribs, and that's fine. But once again, try not to get too ambitious about it. And as always, reposition if you need to. If you need to bring the knees out a little bit wider, that's fine. Make sure your neck is comfortable. Give yourself a good few breaths here. Remember that your right lung is the dominant lung here. We're sort of collapsing a little bit into the left lung, which is fine. Visualize that side body opening. Visualize that right side extending. And notice if your mind is going to that place where it's sort of waiting for the next cue, or if it's waiting for the next thing to happen. We want to find a version of this pose that's slightly outside of comfortable, but still sustainable. That's our yin practice. It's called sitting on the edge or playing with the edge. Closely monitor your breath. Now, as I feel myself sort of that phase change happening, I can feel my ribs melting down into the back of the thighs. And at this point, I might even just bring my left arm down by the side of my body. I can really feel this lovely opening all the way up that right side. A few more moments, just letting it happen. It can be so tricky just to let things happen. Now let's gently come back out of the pose. Maybe place a bit of weight down into that right hand. Lifting up. Taking some movement if need be here. And then we'll get started on the other side. So we might bring the right elbow down, making sure the hips are still slightly behind the knees here. You can stack them if you like, but we don't want to put too much pressure into the shoulders at this point. We're looking for release, and we're looking for that lovely sort of melting away from the fingertip sensation. So from here, I'm just going to shuffle around a little bit, find which works for me, which positioning works for me. You could have your elbows on the blanket or your knees, it doesn't matter. I'm going to reach this left hand out and then just let the weight sort of sink back into this arm. Now here's actually a nice opening in the chest, and that might be enough for you. That might be what you're looking for. If you want to create a more side body opening, then you will start to walk the hands or the left hand towards the right edge of the mat. You might find you actually can sink further in as the arm walks over, because there may be less clearance here. There's less holding your hips upright. So see what works for you. Once again, this is your practice. And then sort of make camp for the next few minutes. Resting your forehead on the back of the hand, or the back of the arm, the right arm that is. And allowing the weight of your body to create that lengthening through the left arm. And I'm just sort of looking around for that sticky spot. And there it is there. As my knees bend and my hips sink down towards my heels, that's creating this sort of lengthening of the left arm. It's also creating this beautiful release in the lower back. And there's the option to extend the right arm and place the forehead or the left ear down on the mat. And we're just settling into that left side now. And we're aware of the mind. But we're not being the mind, we're being the witness. We're witnessing the mind like we might witness our hand move or our fingers move. Or we might witness a moth or a butterfly fly past. We're just watching it happen. And as my body starts to sort of release and relax into the posture, I can really feel that opening happening in the shoulder now. And we're not in rest, but we're also not in effort either. So we don't want to get we want to be relaxed, but we don't want to sort of become lethargic. We're sitting on our edge. Balancing on that point of a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of room for growth, but also sustainability. And that's kind of what life's all about. A few more moments. Monitoring the breath closely. Monitoring the breath closely. And then let's come back out of the posture. I'm going to bring my right hand underneath my right shoulder and lifting back up. And now, once again, start to take any intuitive movements of release you feel like you might need. Especially in the arms here, you might feel like you want to reach up with the elbow and open the chest a little bit. You might want to reach that hand back and sort of counter move, twisting. Whatever works for you. Don't get caught up in perfection or doing the right thing. I'm going to bring my knees in nice and close and just do a few of these little rocks into the hips. That I try to squeeze into every class because they're just so nice. And then just coming back to a neutral position, my knees at hip distance. And from here, I'm just going to move this blanket out of the way for a moment. Make a bit of a mess of the place. And with as little effort as possible, I'm just going to lower myself down onto the front of the body here. And from here, I'm going to bring my elbows up underneath my shoulders. Not out in front though. We don't want to create pressure that might, or at least force that might be centralizing in the spine. So we always want to be lengthening. So by bringing the shoulders back, the elbows back behind the shoulders, it creates an energy of extension as opposed to compression. Now, here we are, up in our Sphinx pose. And this is all we need to do. And we can actually take a really nice variation here, if you like, where we will put a block down and we can rest the forehead on that block. Now, for some of us, that might feel like it takes away from the posture. For others, it might be just what you need. So if you're feeling tension in the back of the neck, I recommend having something underneath your forehead. You could even create something a little bit higher. You could place a second block up, or not, or you can even have your block. Another trick is to have your block here with your thumb and first finger wrapping around it. That sort of keeps your arms in place nicely as well. Either way, we're not creating too much tension here, or we're not creating any tension. We're actually just sitting in our posture. So if you feel like there's effort in the back of the neck, which there's a good chance there might be, then have your block ready to lower the forehead down on. We're looking for a gentle opening in the chest here. And you can even let the shoulder blades sort of slide in towards the spine. And as the body moves around, the body sort of expands and releases. You'll find you need to move yourself around as well. You find maybe the block needs to be moved slightly as well. That's fine. Remember, they're static poses. They're slow poses, but we're not statues either. And just let yourself start to melt into the posture. What I often notice is eventually my lower ribs will start to make firmer contact with the mat. And I often feel a little bit of release out over the hip flexors too, sort of around the pelvis and the top of the thighs. There's this beautiful sort of forward momentum through the heart center that's really nice as well. And once again, just monitoring your breath and really witnessing the mind. Such an amazing practice sitting there. It's taking a step back from your thoughts and watching them happen. Now, as I feel my lower ribs make firmer contact with the mat, I can actually feel the spine lengthening up between my shoulder blades. And there's a kind of yangness to this posture. Like it feels like you want to create more energy, like you want to do more. Which is a brilliant little exercise to remind ourselves that even in yang moments, even in moments of action, we can still take a passive route, or at least witness for a moment. And then I'm going to move this block out of the way, if you do have a block there. I'm going to lower myself down with the elbows out wide and the forehead on the mat. I'm going to separate the feet a little bit wider than the hips. And just take a few breaths here. And if you like, you could even have the forehead on the mat and the arms by the side. Sort of like a counter posture. It's nice to have the elbows out wide because we're still getting that opening in the chest. There's also the option to expand the arms out to the side completely, which is quite a nice movement after what we've just done. Maybe play around with the different variations and see what suits you. Taking a few breaths here. And just letting yourself settle in. You'll start to feel it all soften now. Any tension that was created in the front body or in the shoulders, just letting that release. I'm going to slide the hands back, or bring the hands under the shoulders, wherever your hands were, coming back up onto hands and knees here. And just taking any movement of release that you feel you might need. On the next posture, Anahatasana, heart melting pose. This is one of my favorites. So the idea is to have the hips stacked above the knees here. And the arms a little bit wider than the shoulders. And to start off with, you can bring the hips back a little bit to take the pressure off the upper body if you like. Or we can just go straight into the full variation, which the arms are stretched out in front. There's a soft bend in the elbows. And we're just letting the chest melt towards the floor here. And although this posture is quite passive and static, there's a certain sense of ambition about it. I suppose it's because it's quite easy to move into, so we feel like we should go all the way or as far as we can. But take it in steps. Notice your body and find your edge. Now you can lower one side like an ear to the mat if you like, or you can have the bridge of the nose on the mat. Either way. Try not to keep track of time too much. If you feel like you want to sort of get out of the pose or run away from the moment, then maybe shift yourself around a little bit and make the pose a little bit more sustainable. Because if we go too far into the posture and the muscles tense up to protect the joints in the body, then we're losing all of the benefit of the pose. We want to sort of build trust with ourselves. Follow your intuition. Come back to your breath. Where are you right now in this moment? And I'm starting to feel this beautiful phase change up over the front of the body. Some really nice expansion in the shoulders. And sort of sitting in that discomfort. Sitting on that edge. Just feeling all the fibers let go. And then I'm gently going to walk my hands back towards the body here. Now be really gentle here, that's a big opening. And what I like to do from here is you might place a block underneath the heels, bring yourself up into a nice upright position and just roll the shoulders out a little bit. Feel where your body is now. Notice what you feel like. Maybe even just let the hands dangle and roll the chin around. Let the shoulder blades slide down the spine. And then I'm going to come back up onto hands and knees. Get this block out of the way. And I'm just going to extend the legs a little bit. Take some movement. Make sure there's no tension building up in the lower back here. And coming back down to a neutral position. And from here, we're just going to make our way back into a seated, cross-legged position. Now, you can elevate yourself up on a block, or I highly recommend rolling up your blanket or towel and sitting yourself up onto just the tailbone, up onto that blanket to roll the pelvis forward a little bit, take the pressure off the lower back. Now, from here, what we're going to do is just place the palms of the hands underneath the fleshy parts of our sit bones there, or you could even have your hands under the towel if you like. Whatever works best, and depending on your anatomy, we don't want to draw ourselves forward or into like a deep back bend or anything like that either. But what we do want to do is find a little bit of length in the spine and let the wrists fall down towards the mat here. Let the ears elevate up away from the shoulders. And if you want to take an even more passive approach, you can just sort of let the fingertips rest on the sides of the mat and let the arms sort of drop down towards the edge of the mat here. So there'll be a little bit of an opening in the wrists there as well. That's quite a nice approach. So we've got a couple of different variations, and we're just going to hold for a few moments. I won't say how long, because as soon as our mind has some sort of idea of duration or time, it seems to sort of play with that and start trying to estimate how long it will take, or try to count down the time. And we don't want to distract ourselves with silly stuff like that. So we'll just fall back into our breath. What we're really looking to do is just let the shoulders fall away from the ears. And don't get too caught up in your posture. There will be a little bit of effort necessary to keep the body upright, but it's more about letting the gravity do its work on the shoulders and opening the trapezius and the chest and the throat. You can have the eyes open or closed. And just scanning the body. If anything, sit your awareness in the shoulders, sit your awareness in the upper body and notice what's happening. Notice if there's any points of resistance. If there's any areas you can sort of just bring that intention of release to. Visualize the fibers softening in your muscles. We want the muscles to completely let go. So the connective tissue, the fascia that surrounds the muscles can start to lengthen. And there's going to be resistance. The mind is going to want to create activity. That's what it does. And that might happen. Maybe you get itchy on the face because your hands are occupied. In yoga we call it the monkey mind for this reason exactly. Because it's cheeky, the mind, it plays tricks. It wants to be the center of attention. It wants to be the important one. So without fighting it, just let those impulses sort of go quiet. And then take a deep breath in. Release the hands. And we're going to come straight onto our back from here. So we might take that blanket out of the way. Make sure you've got a block nearby here. And we're going to shift straight into a reclining position. Laying back down. And we're going to extend the legs away from the body. From here, we're going to actually reach the left hand down by the left hip. Then reach the right hand up overhead. And then we're going to slide the left hand down towards the left heel and turn ourselves into a nice sort of arc shape, sort of a bow shape really. And then what we're going to do is walk. What will happen is this left foot will come further over towards the left hand edge of the mat. So what we're going to do is we're going to just place the right foot on top or cross it over the left leg. And then reach up, away from the body, with the right hand. And if you need to prop your head up on something, that's fine. And this posture should come quite nicely after all of those nice big shoulder opening movements we've previously done. And you can move as dramatically into the posture as you like. You can even bring the right hand down to the left ear if that creates any more opening in the side body. But I think it's nice to have the fingers stretched out or the arms stretched out. And don't get too caught up on what the lower body is doing, especially for this practice. We're focusing on the upper body here. And just letting yourself settle in. And once again, just monitoring the breath, especially in these lovely big opening poses or side opening poses. It's really interesting to just notice what the breath's doing. Remember to take variations to what suits you. Remember to find that edge. Just a few more moments. Just witnessing, just exploring the sensation, exploring that edge, and not holding on too tight. Let it all go. And just scanning the body, checking into the breath. And then coming back out of the pose here. Fortunately, the second side for this pose is kind of like a counter for the side we've just done. So as we reach the right arm down towards the hip on the right side here, you'll feel this lovely release on the trapezius in the neck. Then we're kind of creating this nice bow shape as we sort of arc the body, create a little shortening in between the ribs and the right hip here, and then crossing that left leg over once again, being aware of the asymmetries of our body. And reaching up and overhead. You might need to rest your hand on a block or a blanket or something. You might need to elevate your head. That might not be accessible at all for you, so you might just place the hand on the back of the head or touch the ear, the right ear with the left hand. Either way. Find your posture and settling in. Let go of the activity, let go of the ambition. Let go of the urge to make things happen. And let things happen. Let the breath happen, we're not controlling it. In fact, the breath is sort of like our barometer. We're monitoring it, we're noticing what the breath's doing, we're noticing how we're responding. If your breath becomes short or sharp, you may be in too much discomfort. You may not be on the edge anymore. And as your body adjusts and releases, you can shift yourself around a little bit, but try to stay in the stillness. Remember, the anatomy of the posture is not really that important. Feeling that left side body expand now. The left ribs expand. The left arm extend, the shoulder opening. The muscles surrounding the shoulder and the ribs softening. And just a few more moments. And then sliding this left hand back down, shifting yourself back into a neutral position here. And the next posture is a really nice counter pose. So making sure you've got a block nearby. We're going to walk the feet back towards the body. Press into the heels and lift the hips, placing the block underneath the tailbone, so resting the weight of the coccyx down into the block here, letting the spine lengthen. And we've got a couple of variations we can do here. You could elevate yourself up a little bit higher if you like. And for the purpose of this pose, that might be quite nice. We're going to either wing the elbows out. You can even hold onto the block here to create length in the neck. We could bind the fingertips together just behind the block. Or we can even reach the hands up overhead. It's going to create release in different parts of the upper body. So play around with it and find what works for you. For the purpose of this pose, I wouldn't recommend extending the legs, because then it might sort of bring the intention up into the lower body and the hip flexors and the quads and all of that. And we want to make sure we're focused on the upper body here. As always, making sure you're feeling stable and find your variation. The arms could be fully extended if that works for you. Always try to keep a soft bend in the elbows here. Make a little diamond shape with first finger and thumbs, quite nice also. You can let the knees spill inwards. That can create a little bit of tension in the hips, lower back. Try not to let the knees spill out to the side. And find your breath. Let the weight of your body melt down through the block into the floor. Feel the spine lengthen. Let go of any resistance here. Let the face soften, but let the chest, the shoulders and the spine soften as well. whatever variation you're in. Maybe closing the eyes, if that works for you. And just running your awareness up and down your body. But most importantly, focusing on the upper body. I've got the hips slightly elevated above the heart. So you might feel this nice warmth in the chest, in the skull. We're flooding the upper body with blood, with energy. So let that warmth, let that energy just disperse out through your arms, up your neck. Let it fill your fingertips. Let it fill your face, let your face soften. Let the area between your shoulder blades become soft. But also the area between your clavicles, your collarbones, your solar plexus. Every muscle from your sternum to your spine, wrapping out around your ribs, softens. And as you get heavier and heavier, you'll notice your spine lengthening, your neck lengthening. And bring your awareness back to where you are right now. Bring your awareness back to yourself, your sense of self, your thoughts. Where are you right now? Just take a moment to acknowledge that without critical thought or judgment. And then press into your heels. Walk the feet back a little bit if need be. Try not to create too much tension here. Lift yourself away from the block and lower yourself down. From here we're just going to walk the knees, walk the feet out to the sides of the mat and just take a gentle twist. Just let the weight of your knees do the work. Minimal effort here, and I highly recommend at this point extending your arms out to the sides. Feel that beautiful opening in the upper body, in the shoulders, in the chest, the throat, the neck, the spine. You can play with palms up or down. And then we're going to hold the knees over to the right hand side, or whichever side, it doesn't matter, but we're going to take a few moments here. You can gaze out over the opposite fingertips if you like. No effort at all. Just creating a space of maximum release. Just a few more moments. Trying not to let the mind wander too far. Try to stay in your breath, stay in your body. Stay in this moment. And coming back up. And coming over to the other side. Feel that beautiful release from toes to crown. In a place of complete acceptance and complete stillness. And just letting the breath rise and fall. Eyes closed or a soft gaze. Just a few more moments. Don't concern yourself too much with duration. And then coming back up to a neutral position. You might bring the knees in towards the body. Give yourself some gentle, intuitive movement if you like. And then release, find your Savasana. Once again, we don't spend too long here in Savasana in Yin because we've already found pretty deep relaxation in the body. But definitely give yourself a moment of complete neutrality, so nothing's happening. If you feel like there's a place where something's happening, there's tension or resistance, prop that area up or move the body around. And just give yourself a moment to be nowhere. Let yourself float. The mind is quiet now. Just let yourself sort of indulge. In that place of stillness. That place of acceptance. In that timeless place that is the present. And then take a deep breath in. And a long exhale. Through the mouth, start to move the body around a little bit. Start to reawaken the self. Move slowly, take your time. No rush at all. When you're ready, making your way up into a seated position here. We'll meet up with hands at heart center. As always, sealing our practice with gratitude for ourselves, our ability to change and learn and grow and adapt. For the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. Take a deep breath in. Namaste.